My name is Balthazar. I joined the family a year and a half ago as a partner. I'm focusing on all the sourcing of the startups we invest in. And prior to this, I built my own company that failed. Today, I wanted to call the workshop the do-it-yourself startup because I see so many companies come to me and ask for something they need, otherwise this startup won't succeed. And this is not a position you want to be in. Your startup is yourself, and you have to do whatever you need to make it work in the beginning. You can't wait for something else. And then I realized actually every startup goes through this phase that's called bootstrapping. Sometimes you're going to raise funds, sometimes you're not. But in the beginning, it's always going to be bootstrapping, or starting with very little money. Maybe some few happy ones here already made an exit and are able to start with a team and more money, but usually you're going to bootstrap. So bootstrap is starting a company with no money or very little money. It's a mindset for some people, and it's something you need to go through for all the rest. So most people say they bootstrap because they bootstrap all the way because they want to stay free and they want to have control of their company. I see some people wanting to keep control of the company in the early stage, and usually this is the wrong reason. Like they don't want to give 5% shares to the first employee, or they don't want to raise money to keep control. In this case, it's just people that want to bootstrap all the way and keep control, and some companies did it really well. Another good reason to bootstrap would be to have some time to grow. Time to grow means in the beginning, you don't really know what you're going to do. You don't really know where your product market fit is going to be. And you need this time, without spending any money, to be able to change ideas, change team, change projects, until you find something that people actually want. And on the mindset is what I said before. It's this go, no-go situations you want to avoid. You should never wait and never say my startup is not going to succeed if this company doesn't give me the data, for example. You have two things. You have a strategy you have to follow. The strategy is you and yourself and your team going out there and finding clients and building the product. And then you have tons of opportunities. Opportunities could be meeting this angel investor that's going to put 100K in your company. It's having this big company opening up its data. But your strategy should always be something that you can control. You really are the man in charge when you start your company. You're the face of the company. Whether you're doing an on-demand service or anything, in the beginning you have no brand. You have basically nothing, just a web page where you say your service is something. Focus on the experience the client is going to get. The only thing you want someone to remember when it comes to your website in the very, very beginning is that it's going to work. It's going to work because you are behind it. So you put your face, you put something human, you put the experience in the center, you put a phone number, and you make people trust you. You make it personal. That's the only thing you have to do with you and your team. And you also, if you're doing an on-demand startup, for example, you can also go with the person that does the service. You go do everything yourself. That's how you're going to understand every point of friction and everything that's important in the business. Another thing that's really important is that financing is not a proxy for success. I see so many people in the entrepreneurial world that claim companies that raise funds. It's not because you raise funds that you're successful. It's what everyone else thinks. Entrepreneurship is a difficult journey. When you're starting, everyone is super happy, understands what you do. They try to help you, they tell you your idea is good and it's not good and this should change. And then it gets long and it gets long and no one understands why it's been 6 months since something changed. And then you raise money and everyone is like, oh, look at this guy, he succeeded, he raised money. But money is not a proxy at all. There's a lot of dumb money, especially today in the market, financing the wrong projects. There is a lot of companies that spend this money in a very, very bad way. It's actually something that's dangerous to raise money in bad conditions in the beginning. I'll talk about it afterwards. And you also have companies that raise hundreds of millions and still fail because they spend too much on acquisition costs, their business model was not the right one, or any other competitor came and crushed them. Bootstrapping your company is something that's possible. You have companies that did it, GitHub. Now they raised money. They raised 200 million with Andreessen Horowitz. It's basically Andreessen Horowitz going there and convincing the founders that with a 100 million euro bank account, they could do whatever else they want. They didn't use a single dime for the company. So it's just bootstrapping. AppSumo did the same, MailChimp with a service I guess you all know. So bootstrapping all the way is possible, but anyway, you're all gonna start this way. Then bootstrapping and financing your startup is two different worlds. It doesn't give you the same control, the same leverage, the same speed, the same growth. So you should know when to raise and why you raise. Usually you raise because you want the money to be transformative for your company. It's not just to hire a couple people that you don't know the job. So, of course, you have more control when you bootstrap. So it gives you the freedom to change things, to hire people, to choose whatever you do. But when you get funded, you can go much faster and avoid competition. So it's at some point really good, especially when you know that you have the product market fit. But the very, very bad thing about financing is that when you don't have the leverage, meaning you don't grow fast enough or you don't hit the targets that you told your investors you would get, you have absolutely no leverage and he decides everything. Like you're running out of cash slowly. At what point you're going to need to raise again is the first one that needs to put money again. If it does not, you're dead. So when you get money at the wrong time, you basically lose every leverage you have, and you still need to go to these growth targets. This growth targets is one of the things I see often. I see companies come to me and say, "Oh, I'm able to raise 500,000 euros from this guy." And I know that any professional investor would not have invested at the same valuation or the same amount. And the only advice I have to them is spend the money like you have no money. Like keep growing. It's good that you have money, take it, because it's difficult to raise money. But if you spend it too fast, in 10 months, you're going to be out of money and you will never reach the stage where professional investors would invest for a Series A. So when you have money, you need to keep the leverage on your investors and you need to hit the growth targets needed to have a high evaluation for the next round. Now I want to talk about a couple things that enables some startups to bootstrap a long way. So we call them the Cavalry methods because it's what you send in the front row. It's some way to finance your operations. I'm going to take 3 examples and you'll understand what I mean. So Save is a company, an extraordinary company we have in Paris at the family. Like 14 months ago, there were 5 people. Today, they're 450, and they make 3 million euros a month. I think the actual figure is 4 million for this month. And they didn't raise any funds until they reached 1.5 million euros a month. Their business is pretty simple. They install corners in malls, in shopping malls. You go there, you put your phone, 20 minutes later, it's fixed by a guy that's been trained in their school. How do they go from 0 to 100 corners and 1.5 million? It's just that they pay every provider they have 90 days after they get the stuff. So they have a month-by-month ordering process. They get tons and tons of screens and buttons and batteries. Then every client comes, pays, and they pay 2 or 3 months later. This enables them to have huge cash in the bank all the time. If anything happens, they die. Like now they raise 15 million to go international because at one point you need to upgrade all your team and go and build new teams everywhere in Europe. And for example, a couple months ago, Apple blocked every import of screens from China that would not go to Foxconn. So they couldn't get any screen at 28 euros or something like the screen skyrocketed to like 70. If this happened before they fundraised, they were dead. But that's the goal they take. That's the ambition they have. They always maximize the risk with the treasury they have thanks to this 90 days. Another company that you might know is Made.com. So basically they build custom furniture. It's not exactly custom. They give you access to design furniture for a price that's pretty fair. And you go online, you buy it, then they build it, and then they ship it to you. So the delay is really, really long. And again, they have 10 to 12 to 15 weeks of cash before you get your product. Just financing the acquisition of the new customers. Looks like Madoff, but it works. If nothing goes wrong, it's fine. So their working capital is super negative. So no capital at work really works well. The third method is Fotolia. Fotolia is a big online platform to buy photos, photograph pictures at a price. They've been acquired by Adobe for 800 million a couple months ago. And what they do is simple. They have an inventory of photos, and when you go and buy, either you buy 1, or you buy 5, or you buy 10, but when you buy 10, you pay them for 10 pictures. And then whether you use 1 or 10 in the next year, they're only going to pay the photographers when you take the photo. They also have cash all the time. So these are 3 basic things, depending on your providers, the delay you have between when they pay and the service you offer, and the way you sell, you bundle your products. It's pretty efficient, but risky. But it still needs one big question, is to be careful about the business model. It looks very obvious. It doesn't look very obvious, but if you look at Made.com, today the margins are pretty low because they need to sell at a price that's good for the public, and they're building after you order. This means they build one by one by one. If one day they want to do higher margins, they need to do inventory, meaning that the 20% of things that get sold the most, they pre-build them so they get lower cost. But then they have a working capital that's not at all negative. So it's, for them, switching today would mean having 30 million euros working capital, so injected by investors, that's not put to use. So you need to be careful about the business model, because at one point you can't sustain this model all the way. For Fotolia, it works all the time. So all of you are going to bootstrap your company in the beginning, and it's a really good thing. It's like going to the gym for your employees. It's that where they train and where they get the right message and the right ways to build your own companies. Every startup tries to stay a startup for a very, very long time. Most of them don't succeed. What they say is you hire one guy that's bad, and then he hires 5 that's bad, and then you're fucked. But bootstrapping is a very, very good thing. And actually, American companies are starting to realize this. And 5 to 10 years ago, they would raise Series A, B, C, D, E, F, and then they would go to Europe. Today, they raise Series B or C, and they start to go to Europe, meaning they have only 50 million euros in the bank. And if you want to deploy in 10 to 20 countries, you have 1 to 2 million euros. So they send people that are actually starting startups everywhere in Europe and get the right training to build this. So it's sweat, it's going door by door to sell it, it's negotiating everything, it's negotiating with your providers. All of this because when you have dollars, it means you need education. You need people to know what it means to spend the money, what it means to spend 100K on a salary, and you need to have people that understand what the return on investment is. So bootstrapping is a really good thing, and you should have people do it. We also think it's a really good thing, especially in Europe, to keep trying to bootstrap longer, because we feel everyone is raising one round too much, one round too many in Europe, and it's the seed. So we want people in Paris to skip the seed meaning we want them to go to first very ambitious rounds, like from 700K to 2 million to 15 million for save. Because this 15% you're going to save on the first round is going to be the 15% you're going to be able to sell to investors on the later stage rounds to go to a very, very large company. If you only have 20% left when your valuation is 100 million, you're going to have a great company. It's going to be a great thing, but it's never going to go to 1 billion. So we try to push everyone to bootstrap and try to skip the seed and go to more ambitious rounds. And when you have the money, we please advise everyone not to party like in 1999, where they would burn all the money in lunch parties in all the countries in the world. So you still act like you didn't have money and keep the DNA you had before. So for this, you have some techniques that you can apply before you get the money and after you get the money. The first is to really choose wisely your minimal viable product. There is one point I hate in MVP is the product thing, because everyone still thinks it's a product that needs to do tons of things. The best companies I've seen start with something really, really, really simple. Of course, if you're going to do a cryptographic company, you're going to have a pretty complex product, but most of the things can be done pretty simply. You can have WhatsApp, you can have Facebook groups, you can have many, many things like this. We have a company in Paris, actually in Belgium, called Menu Next Door. They're a community of chefs cooking at home and selling meals that you can take away meals. He started with a Facebook group, so every day he would post, today this chef cooks this, for this much you can order it at this address. He grew the Facebook group to 45,000 people before even having a landing page. And he was selling more than 1,000 dishes a day. He raised good money then. Now he has a website, he's building the apps, he's ramping up the team. But that's MVP. MVP is something really simple that just works. And you focus only on the thing that works. The other things is, of course, to use everything that's available out there. You don't need 5 developers to do your product. You can go on Squarespace, do a landing page. I think Com did a workshop last week or before the holidays on how to start your company in 48 hours. You have Squarespace, Typeform, Google Maps, tons of APIs and SaaS products you can use to assemble a first product that works. So use them all the time, all the time. Another thing is Freelance. So you have 2 platforms that are really good, that are Elance and Upwork. They enable you to find tons of people in other countries that work for less money than you do and that are 10 times more efficient than you are at doing these tasks, of course. You don't hire, no, of course. Yeah, I'm sure you can. There are tons of things you need to be careful about. The way we do it is we have this big task to do. We take just a small part of it. We give it to 20 people. We see who does it best, and then we give the whole thing. That's how we test when it's important. Of course, you can have people that screw you up. Happens sometimes. We have a company called Startup Service. They basically put you in contact with the right professional to do anything, like from repairing your door to building an IKEA to teaching you how to climb. They grew a team of 120 people, and they met 2, and they all met them on Elance and Upwork. But they're very harsh in the selection, and they really processed everything. And it's better to do this than to have an intern come. I'll talk about it later. Hire slowly. Whether you're funded or not, you should never hire someone when you don't know why. You should always do everything yourself. And at one point, you don't know how you're going to do it. Because you have too much to do, you can't sleep anymore. So you optimize every bit of the process. Because, of course, in the beginning, it's not optimized at all. and at one point you know exactly what the person is going to do, that's the right time to hire someone. You never hire someone for what he's going to do in the next 12 months from now. And it's a mistake we see very, very often. It's people hiring a VP sales when they're selling 2 products a month. The VP sales is not done for this. It's going to be made for this 12 months from now when you sell 20 times more. So hire for what you need today, never over hire for what you're going to need afterwards. You need to do the job yourself first, and you need to understand exactly what it is to hire the right people. In the Valley, they say hire slowly, fire fast, and it's really something that's difficult to do because then you're understaffed all the time. But that's the only way you're going to build a team that really knows what they do, and the only way you're going to be able to have a great culture. I see companies do the opposite all the time. Like they bootstrap. They raise 1 million, and then they're okay, cool. Now we can be 10. No, you should be 5, then 6, then 7. Never go too fast. This one is the most obvious one, I think, is fake it until you make it. Whether you marketplace and you fake one side of it, whether you make people believe that you already have clients, whether you just storytell something that doesn't really exist, you need to try to do it all the time. All the time. We do it, every company does it. Whether you have no one in supply and you go there yourself saying you're the delivery guy, it works. Whether you Uber and you pay drivers a monthly salary to have the supply in the beginning, whether you have a website that just a landing page and you do everything by phone, no one has to know. For example, artificial intelligence companies do it all the time. They have this superb program that does everything automatically, and actually everything is sent to Madagascar and people do it. They just fake it, sell high-value services that's actually done for a couple cents every time. Try to do it for everything you have. Try to make it everything simple. If you want to have a community, don't build a chat, just build a Facebook group, bring them there, bring your friends in, make more people, fake it. That's linked to what the other companies are doing, is you get the money people owe you as fast as possible and you pay as late as possible. It's not always a great thing, a great feeling, but when you bootstrap, it's maybe the only thing you can do. And if you ever worked with large corps, you're going to see that it's always what they do. It's actually in the process, they are not allowed to pay you in the first months, depending on every company. So you're going to ask once, and it's written on the lady or the man's thing, don't pay. And when you ask 2, 3, 4 times, at one point they're going to pay, and that way they optimize cash. So for them, it's just 1%, which is a lot. For you, it's just your life. So do it. The other thing is that you can try to pay everything with risk in the beginning. Paying with risk, I mean, you're going to work with a design agency to do everything, your landing page, your identity, your business cards, or whatever, your logo. They're going to ask, I don't know, 10K. It's way better for you to pay 5K today and 10K if you fundraise more than 100K than to pay 10 today. So that's paying with risk, is like trying to put people on your side because you're only going to pay them if you succeed. So we have deals like this with tons of providers in Paris. We have lawyers that take 2K to do everything a startup needs for 18 months, and then they pay 8K more if they fundraise. We have this with a couple design agencies. You should always try, not always, try to pay with risk, but you should not pay with equity. Equity is something that's going to be way too valuable if you succeed. If you really have no choice, do it, but my real advice would be never pay with equity. The only people you pay with equity are employees or investors. employees because they're going to stay and work for a very, very long time. And they are vested, meaning that they have 4 years to stay in your company before they can get any of the shares. So pay with risk, don't pay with equity. The only good thing I've seen with equity in the past years was lobbying in the US, where you have big lobbying agencies that start to work for startups. And it's good because it's the only way that the startup can pay more than large corps and lobbies. So if you're Airbnb and you give 5% to a lobbyist that succeeds, that's going to say, okay, this is going to be worth $1 billion, is going to fight more than anything Accor or Hilton is going to pay. That's the only way I show a balance that could be changed between two forces thanks to equity. That's also about the do-it-yourself startups mindset, is that you should not delegate. Don't delegate everything you do. Delegate what you know best. No, that's what I mean. You delegate what you know how to do perfectly. Yeah. I mean, you don't learn how to program. If you don't know how to program at all, you can learn the basics, and you can, if you can interact with your design, it's going to be a good thing. But in general, you all have to upgrade your skills. They say that the learning curve is the new thing. For startups, you'll end up being good in finance, good in HR, good in sales, especially in finance. If you grow a big company, you're going to know what it means to go public. You're going to know what it means to have preferred shares, different classes of stock. So don't delegate everything you don't know. Delegate what you know best, because it's super, super easy to check. And it just takes you like a glimpse to see where it goes wrong, and learn what everything else. Interns, not really, like, it's not that they're bad, it's that it's very difficult when you have a product-oriented company that is aiming to a single goal to keep them in the loop. First, it takes some time to teach them what they're going to do, teach them the culture. Then, when they leave, even like everything goes super well. They need to go back to school. Everyone is sad that they leave. Like the mood changes. Then you have 2 more that come, 2 more that leave, and everyone that I know that has a company that have more interns than employees is saying this. Like, no one really knows what the company is because it's never the same people. So don't use interns too much. It's usually less efficient than doing it yourself and optimizing the processes you need. And if you have some very, very repetitive tasks, first, the intern is not going to like doing it, and you can outsource it for less money than it is. This is something else that's very important, and I see every company that starts that is not doing it, is don't prevent risk, just manage it. I see so many people that are not launching because you could go this way around and not pay them. It's not a problem. Don't focus on the 20% of people that are going to trick you, that are like going to hire a cleaning lady on your service and then are going to bypass you. If you focus on this on the beginning, it's going to be energy that you lose. It's way better to have all these people cheat and talk about your service saying, oh, go on their website, you can cheat, because they're going to talk about you. At one point, you're going to be able to secure everything. You need to focus on just the thing that works. You try everything, every day, you try tons of different things. What doesn't work, you skip. What works, you double down on it. And it's also true in designing your product. For example, we have a company that sells prepaid Bitcoin cards. You go online, you pay with your credit card, they send you Bitcoins, and you can also buy a physical one that you can give to people. And they had one guy that frauded. So they spent more than 2 months building a system that secures every transaction. And today they're selling more and they have no fraud. But like this 2 months is not worth 2, 3, 4 frauds. They have way better things to do. And when you design the service, you focus on this experience. you have to know that even if it's the beginning, the details matter. It's not because you have no money and you started 2 months ago that the design can be ugly, that the people that work for you can be average. Everything needs to be perfect. From the emails, the welcome process on people that, like, when you register, you can send a nice email and not a plain text email that says, thanks for registering your website, your password is this. Everything needs to be good. For example, at Airbnb, they have attention to details on everything. The CEO is sending an email to all his employees every day. They have super host programs where they give back to the community for the best host. Like, details are everything. And even in the back end, I had an entrepreneur not long ago showing me his back end that he calls the Rolls Royce because it works pretty well. And then he uploads a file on one line, which is one applicant for a job, and you have this GIF that goes up and throw presents. And I'm like, really, your dev had nothing else to do than do this? And he's like, oh, I really believe that when your backend is nice, you actually act nice when you have someone in front of you. And then I thought about it, and I thought about all these people behind the black screens with green text, and I was like, yeah, I can understand why they're not that friendly. So even in your backend, details matter. What? Yeah, sure, no problem. So every detail matters. And the last thing that you really have to understand when you start your company is that the time horizon is never 2 years. You have to think about what you're going to do in the next week, not in the next months. Everything that you need is growth. You need to hit your growth targets every week. So if 1 week you're not able to hit this growth target, first you try to reach it by hand. Otherwise, you start thinking about 2-week things. Like, if you're not able to reach your growth targets on your website, it's not building a mobile app in 2 months that's going to change everything. You need to focus on very simple things that you can change every day and test every day. The cycle between test and feedback needs to be as short as possible. So before product market fit, there is basically nothing except testing the product until you have people that pay. And after, it gets longer and longer and longer because you need to find ways to grow that are more time consuming. Thank you.